Testing? Oh, that's not in my,
Cheryl?
here we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, Ms. Gurry? Okay. I'm going to call the regular meeting of council to order. And could I please have a procedural motion to proceed in camera? So It's on. I need mic. Thank you. Welcome to the September 25th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are in the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight is Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular council meeting will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left of the agenda items, over by the water. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. Council members have been granted the authority to join meetings electronically. Tonight we have Councillors Manley, Eastmuir, and Hemmens joining remotely, and I believe Councillor Brown will be joining later in the day. The first item on the agenda is introduction of late items. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For late items this evening, I'm just going to grab the first page here. We have for agenda item 12I, development permit application number DP 1308 for 855 Douglas Avenue, adding the delegation from Paul Chapman. For agenda item 12J, building bylaw amendments, implementation of BC Zero Carbon Step Code, and update to BC Energy Step Code, add the delegations from Patrick Littlejohn and Richard Bice. Remove agenda item 13A, zoning amendment bylaw 2022, number 4500.204, and remove agenda item 13B, land use contract discharge bylaw 2022, number 7355, as well and not noted on your annotated, Madam Chair, is item 10B1, the recommendation from the Mayor's Leaders Table. There is a slight adjustment to it, and it's that the motion read that Council directs staff to prepare an information package for the Mayor's Leaders Table, outlining steps the city has taken to provide a coordinated approach to health and housing, and identifies opportunity for further advocacy and collaboration with the province of BC and Government of Canada. So that would be what the motion will read, and the minutes will be adjusted to reflect that. As well, for item 12A, the property tax exemption report. For Schedule D, there's two corrections that need to be made, and that is for folio number 86083.01. We need to correct the address to state 321 Selby Street. And for folio number 85055, update the organization to Canadian Mental Health Association, Mid-Island, and Nanaimo Youth Services Association. So those are updates to Schedule D on the bylaw for property tax exemption bylaw. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Could I please have a motion for the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Perino. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Motion for the adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved by Councillor Perino, seconded by Councillor Giesbrecht. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Mayor's report. I'm going to ask Councillor Hemmens to do our Mayor's report, the first portion, and she's going to be talking about what happened when we were at the Union of BC Municipalities this past week. Councillor Hemmens, please.
Thank you, Chair, very much. So I want to begin by thanking all of Council and staff for everyone's efforts during a very, very busy week. Particular gratitude to Natalie Sponigal, who provided all of the resources that were shared with the Premier and Ministers. The general flavor of the convention was one that reflects the multiple crises facing municipalities and the desperate need for provincial resources to address the impacts of climate change, the housing crisis, and dramatically increasing public safety concerns in community. Council met with Premier Eby and Ministers Dix, Farnworth and Whiteside, as well as Island Health leadership. We discussed a wide range of topics impacting Nanaimo, including the implementation of our 2019 MOU with BC Housing, NRGH expansion plans, a particular thank you to Ian and Janice who led that meeting, our desperate need for shelter spaces, as well as public safety. Staff met with representatives from the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation and the Ministry of Transportation. In the latter meeting, we were pleased to bring forward a request on behalf of Chief Wise from Nanaimo First Nation. Further meetings on Regional District of Nanaimo files took place with Council participation, including with the Minister of Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, and the Parliamentary Secretary for Watershed Restoration. The city had one endorsed resolution related to appropriately resourcing emergency warming shelters, and our emergency program manager, Evan Lloyd, presented at the large Urban Communities Forum on extreme heat risk mapping. Takeaways specific to our community include, with Island Health, we were able to escalate and anticipate resolution of some operational challenges at Nanaimo's overdose prevention site at 250 Albert. With the Ministry of Public Safety, we had confirmation that we'll receive regular reporting on the Repeat Violent Offending Intervention Initiative. The community may remember that this was announced from the steps of the Nanaimo Courthouse in May, and we, as a council, had not had an update. We learned in that meeting that since May 1st, 39 repeat offenders in Nanaimo have been prioritized for investigation. From the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, we have assurances that new treatment beds will soon be announced for Nanaimo, and they can't come soon enough. From the Minister of Public Safety, we had confirmation that the minister is looking to expand the integrated major crime units island-wide. Finally, I'm pleased to share that an advocacy page will soon be added to the city website where residents can view all of the advocacy materials and requests made by the city of the provincial government over the last 5 years. Thank you all again for your support in a successful convention.
Thank you, Councillor Hemmens, and you did a great job representing us. Really appreciate all your time and effort into this. Now for the rest of the mayor's report. For those that aren't aware, Mr. Lindsay was appointed at a special council meeting held on September 7th and will begin his new role as the Chief Administrative Officer on October 3rd, 2023. Mr. Lindsay brings with him 29 years of progressive management and leadership experience working in local government, including 27 years at the City of Nanaimo. For more information, you can go to our city website and you'll see his history and background. Okay. The City of Nanaimo Department of Parks, Recreation and Culture announces a call for the 2024 Street Banner Design Program. The City of Nanaimo invites all amateur and professional artists and designers to submit the proposals to the 2024 Street Banner Design Program. The banners will be on display in spring 2024 and hung in Nanaimo's downtown area, including in the Arts District downtown, along Bowen Road, 3rd Street, and other major routes, creating a vibrant visual presence. The call is open to artists and designers at all levels of experience currently living in British Columbia. In 1874, the City of Nanaimo was the 6th municipality to be incorporated in British Columbia. The year 2024 marks 150 years since incorporation. To recognize this occasion, submissions to the 2024 Street Banner Design Program are being asked to include a 150 design with a larger artistic framework. The deadline to submit applications is Monday, October 23rd by 4 p.m. The City of Nanaimo announces the call for the Youth Poet Laureate. Nanaimo's next Youth Poet Laureate will be appointed by City Council for a 2-year term and will serve as a literary ambassador for the city. The Youth Poet Laureate is an advocate for property, language, and the arts, and is expected to create opportunities for the community to appreciate strong youth voice, reach a variety of audiences, encouraging peer-to-peer education and inspiration, and pave the way for future youth to engage on a civic level using their artistic voice. A successful applicant is expected to have a talent for inspiring the community, have clear and innovative ideas regarding the vision for the position of Youth Poet Laureate, be comfortable presenting and performing in public settings, and have a gift for capturing their audiences through live readings. They will have a track record of engagement with the literary community and will bring their own artistic projects, experiences, and networks to this dynamic civic role. Applicants are invited to review the completed guidelines, including eligibility requirements and details on how to apply on the city website. The deadline to submit applications is on October 30th, midnight. And the province has given statutory approval to the City of Nanaimo for borrowing bylaw for up to $48.5 million for the first phase of the Nanaimo Operations Center project, also known as the Public Works Yard. With this approval, the city will commence an alternative approval process to gain permission from residents to borrow the necessary funds. The process begins Wednesday, September 27th, and ends Friday, November 3rd. The Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 borrowing bylaw 2023, number 7362, which received 3 readings from Council on June 19th, will see the city borrow a sum not exceeding $48,500,000, repayable over a period of no more than 20 years. For more information on the alternative approval process, please visit the city website at www.nanaimo.ca/go-to/AAP. And if you want more information on the project, you can go to www.nanaimo.ca, goto/NOC. And the last one. On September 24th, 1998, the Government of Canada officially proclaimed the last Sunday of September of every year as Police and Peace Officers National Memorial Day. The Solicitor General of Canada stated a formal National Memorial Day gives Canadians an opportunity each year to formally express appreciation for the dedication of police and peace officers who make the ultimate tragic sacrifice to keep communities safe. Law enforcement officers from all over Canada gathered in Ottawa and marched to the Police and Peace Officers Memorial Pavilion on Parliament Hill, where all fallen officers are remembered and their sacrifices honored. The British Columbia Law Enforcement Memorial Service coincides with the National Police and Peace Officers Memorial. Yesterday, hundreds of law enforcement officers in BC paid their respects to their fallen peers at the Legislature Building in Victoria. BC had 2 officers within a year die in the line of duty serving their community. As acting mayor and on behalf of council, I extend our condolences to the family of those who have died in the line of service. They will never be forgotten. And I think that's it. Oh no, one more. The City of Nanaimo is recognizing National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th with a free public event focused on community well-being. Wellness Unites, a community event for health and reconciliation, is a day of connection, activity, and community engagement at 3 separate locations: Oliver Woods Community Center, the Nanaimo Ice Center, and the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. The event will run from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and is designed to honor survivors of residential schools while addressing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action that speak to the critical importance of sport, health, and well-being in the reconciliation process. Orange shirts will be available for purchase at all locations while supplies last. And that is the mayor's report. Now where's my next one? And I believe there's no rise in report, Ms. Gurry. Thank you. Presentations, Mr. Whitty, if you could come to the mic, please. Mr. Whitty will be providing a PowerPoint presentation, re Diana Krall Plaza.
Thank you. I'll run through this. I know your time is limited. We're going to look at 4 items there. You can see we'll run through and end up with preferred concept discussion. I think one of the things we want to really consider is you always learn from other places, and I think any of us that are working in the design world, and particularly in spaces, urban design spaces, it really key word is animation. You wander the world and travel and look at other successful cities. They have spaces that are obviously very animated, and they tend to draw us back. So when we think about Diana Krall Plaza, some of the basics that come to mind are certainly, as I mentioned, animation. The other is to really link it into Reimagine Nanaimo and the focus on a healthy downtown. Actually, I'm faster than your PowerPoint here. BK does need to be and have some careful strategic investments. It needs to acknowledge that Diana Krall is a world-famous person and certainly deserves to be celebrated, as she was recently here. It also needs to be connected more fully to the downtown and its core elements. Right now, it just fails to do that, and any of us that go downtown on a regular basis know that it's very much an empty space. So I started to sketch out some of the ideas of how we might frame this. So we put together a process framework, which really leads us through the consultation stage into the potential to build out. Honestly, this PowerPoint is way too slow for Dave Whitty. Diana Krall Plaza is, if you look at it there, it really is what I would call an outdoor room. It's framed nicely by the library, Credit Union Building, Port Theatre, and in that, though, it creates some opposites, which is that because it acts as a room, it can feel closed in if it's not activated, and so the opportunity to activate it is really quite an important opportunity. So here we are, an empty space. But first impressions are, not only is it isolated, not only from some of the core downtown and commercial, but some of the activity around it, including the waterfront. There are barriers, the parkades there's stairs, and it's just not easy to get to from other parts of the downtown. So first impressions, though, linked to opportunity. There are potential nodes within the site and linkages outside. This image is obviously from the hotel as it was under construction. So we put together a proposal to the city. I did this work pro bono. A budget was $20,000. We got a deal because the money went to fund our meeting rooms and students, and I didn't take anything for it. We ended up stepping back and identifying really incredible exterior. Downtown has really got some interesting urban design to it. It's just right now lacking kind of that center place to bring people together. So as I mentioned earlier, very much a void site. And so I mean, this is a typical kind of day in Diana Krall Plaza now. So what have we got there? Limited existing uses, as you can see. I mean, this public toilet, the library's there certainly, and credit union, and very minimal homage to Diana Krall herself. So we put together a work plan and started this in November 2019. Guess what happened? So COVID caused us to pause for a year, and we got back at it again in the summer of 21. And then actually in the fall of 2022, 2 years ago actually to this month, if I remember, we presented to council, previous council. So I'm pleased to be able to present to some of you new councillors with this plan. Some of the key building blocks, certainly we do context analysis. That's kind of fundamental. Before you start, you want to know where the site fits within the broader scheme of things in the downtown. We held an ideas forum, something I do all the time, and on March 5th, and had a good turnout. I'll talk about that in a minute. We did a business survey. We explored successful squares around the world. We got a structural engineering letter, because there's always questions about can you build on top of that parkade or not. We set some guiding principles in place, and then we undertook what I love to do, or charrette. Charrettes are intensive design. Small design groups get together, explore ideas, develop concept plans. We put those on the website through a QR code, and then we finalized the preferred plan. So I'm not going to go through these in detail. I'm mindful of the time because Cheryl gave me the eye when I showed up. So we did context analysis, which is pretty basic to look and explore what are the factors around the site that inform the site. Again, I won't go through these now, but things like traffic patterns, people patterns, movement, how do they, and how they might inform the overall design. We ended up with an ideas forum where people came, shared their ideas for Diana Krall Plaza, and these are some of the items that they identified. So dedicated space for Indigenous people, art, culture, and history. Another item, arts and culture. Arts, workspace, murals, monuments, retail space, pop-up markets, fixed markets. We have that now, of course. We have some markets Thursday night. Food trucks and cafes, more seating, social media focus, make it Instagrammable, venue for gathering, covered spaces, now that the weather's back that we usually have, retractable covers for the space, and multi-use space. And then multiple elevations to capitalize on the views, because there are some substantial views as you approach Front Street. We did a business survey too. We got 22 responses, businesses downtown. Some of the key advantages they saw was access to customers, unique character and environment. Commercial Street is acknowledged as a really interesting streetscape, got an award way back about 15 years ago for that. Cultural activities as well, and some of the key issues, obviously safety, not a surprise. Lack of activity and programming, again, not a surprise. Lack of pedestrian destinations, not a surprise. And storefront vacancies, yeah. So these are issues that we think can be addressed, but if we actually get on with Diana Krall Plaza. So how can we make the Diana Krall Plaza more vibrant? The business survey indicated a whole bunch of things, as you can see here. 90% of the respondents do consider it to be an important or very important visitor destination for downtown. So this is something a lot of people acknowledge that needs to be addressed. If we look at contemporary squares and plazas from those that study these on a regular basis, this is what we find that we should be doing. They should pull you in from anywhere in the city. There should be lots of attractions. Flexibility to increase year-round use. That's really important, year-round use, and we can do that here. Artfully placed amenities. Consistently active. A major attraction. Excellent programming. full of activity, variety of passive and active uses. So you can really see that animation is key. Innovative surprises as well, because you want to keep people back, right? I mean, this is about bringing in tourists to some degree, but this is about making our place special for us. And so we want to have connectivity and destination to bring people together through innovative surprises. Active market, and then that's the source of this analysis. So one of the key things was structural engineering letter. Everybody's been questioning this. So we found out we can build on Diana Krall Plaza. It's got to be light frame, 1 to 2 story, but you can do 2 story. That really kind of opens the doors, particularly for that one space that is actually owned above the plaza. So we formed an advisory committee. We put together these design principles. Perhaps I'll let you read these rather than me spouting on. And then lastly, so these got design principles, again, something I use regularly. They keep us kind of around a particular focus, and this committee pulled these together, so it led us as we went into the design charrettes. So we had 3 teams. These are the team members here, a good cross-section of members of the community and organizations. And so we spent a couple of days hard at it. And the themes that came out of the charrettes, the one team worked in the CCU building, storytelling, discovery, restoration, balancing permanent and temporary activation to draw people into the plaza. Emphasize year-round uses with landscaping, seating, and weather responsiveness, viewing platform and skywalk. The art gallery team, diversity, and they're not from the art gallery, they were housed in the art gallery. Diversity showcased in all age activities, public amphitheater, improved accessibility and employment opportunities, covered gathering places, lighting and natural windbreaks, dynamic flooring, viewpoints, and skywalk again. Library team located in the library, short-term solutions and quick fixes with long-term significant interventions, and you'll see that resonate, I think, as I finalize my presentation. Re-examine a portion of the first floor of CCU as retail and restaurant space, footbridge connecting to the harbor front. So then we put that on the website. We had a QR code, put it up all downtown. People actually provided some really good feedback, including this. So there were 3 preferred actions out of the feedback. Attractions and destinations. Citizens want to see that. They want to see amenities. They'd like to see seasonal strategy, which is interesting because it really reinforces what you find when you actually research places in other parts of the world. Preferred charrette design themes that they liked: active year-round pop-up retail, seasonal markets, retail, restaurants, programming year-round. They also liked active night and day. Circulation was important, which is really important in terms of linking it to the downtown and other aspects of the downtown. Lookout and skywalk they thought was important, and efficient arts and music programming all year round. All right, so what did we do with that? Come on, here we go. So generally, the preferred concept has got kind of 3 key areas. So it's where Diana Krall Plaza links with commercial and the corner of Wharf Street, where it has a large physical presence at the back of the Port Theatre, and then off into the corner to the Port Theatre. We call that a dining theme. So, and the linkages that go, really key to have linkages that are external to the site. So it is literally the potential for a vibrant outdoor room, and it can be absolutely amazing if we decide we want to do this. So we know that it's been tested over the years. It struggled to respond simply because it lacks the bones that make public plazas viable and thriving. It just doesn't have the bones, right? It's this void space. So it should be aspirational, but also grounded in reality. The plan should not be fixed with an end target, but a plan that guides and offers suggestions and possibilities for future consideration as use of the site increases. So this is about a plan that kind of adapts and moves as it needs to. Common sense preferred concept is offered here. It's a plan that builds on public input, the Ideas Forum website, and the charrette and its context and unique key ideas that are found in successful squares across the globe. So, very quickly, year-round day and night activities. How do we do that? Places to engage, stage venues, lighting, seating, covered areas. Connections within and adjacent. Do that into and through the site, to the waterfront, Marriott, Hotel, Commercial Street, Wharf Street. Engaging with existing buildings, the library, CCU, and Marriott. Supporting cultural diversity, Snuneymuxw, ethnic cultures, murals, food market stalls, festivals. Promoting green space, native plants, pergolas. Art and music. Come on. Venues, permanent, temporary installations, projection mapping, demographics, kids, youth, families, seniors, you name it, we should have them there. And then, lastly, public amenities. We're looking at restaurants and bike racks. So, put that together. We look at what we call precedents, and go into these, but always explore what others do that are successful and see how we might bring them forward. Some initial sketches looking at how where some of the key sites are as we start to frame this out. Some more key sketches here to just start to, about the broader concept. And then we get into the 3 phases. Phase 1, near Commercial and Wharf. Simply, it's about carefully modifying what's there now and doing it with care and attention just to get things rolling. We do think that this is an opportunity to really support or to celebrate Diana Krall. You could do it with QR, to voiceover, all of these things. Now that takes work, and I understand that sometimes Diana Krall's agents don't always get back when people from the city request. I'm saying that I think we can, if we work at it, I think that we'd have some favorable response to really celebrate her life and her music. Center Space is phase 2, basically, the space near the Port Theatre, a place to be very, very vibrant, lots of activity. Food trucks could be there on a temporary basis, and you'll see why temporary in a moment. Opportunity, and I'll scoot in on some more detail in that site area. So, suggestion a coffee shop cafe in that corner of the library. You know what? The library, I think it's a good idea. And then using the steps going towards the Marriott with the stage down below, the steps as a place to actually watch venue. And that happens in all kinds of cities. And then a multi-use destination space for kids, storytelling, and crafts. Great place for Snuneymuxw elders to tell stories, for instance, or the storytellers of around town tellers of Nanaimo who are substantive at that kind of work. And then the entertainment flexible space in the middle. You could have cafes seating outside for the coffee shop, retractable awnings, and a retractable stage. And then create vibrancy on the walls. I don't know if you're up high looking down at Port Theatre from a distance. It's a remarkable place to actually have as a vibrant wall for staging images and displays. Phase 3. So if you look at Coastal Credit Union and basically Wharf Street, making that a really strong space. So for coastal community, we're suggesting that because their actually numbers are way down from COVID, and they've got some empty space, and I'll actually be doing a presentation to them, I think, this week. An opportunity to have some cafe, store, retail space that links back out into the plaza. The Airspace restaurant, you can see, is something that the owner has actually participated in the charrette, well, the representative of the owner. There may be some interest there. I actually believe there would be if we had the right opportunity for make the space viable. I think there will be, actually. And then an elevated walkway connecting to the waterfront. I live downtown. You can't get really into Diana Krall unless you really have to work at it, and this is an opportunity to link directly to it. So I'm just, and then down on Wharf Street, making that a vibrant space for ethnic kiosks for market food, having festivals, that parking space on a temporary basis, the food trucks could go there, and then a water feature at the end, which would actually be, if you can see the photograph there, they're pretty common, and they work actually really well and draw kids in, and it's really playful and fun. And so this becomes a place for people, not vehicles, and a place where people can celebrate and come together. So the strategy, I said I'd do it in 20, I'm going to be at 20. Consistent with the Charette Group input, DKP should be programmed to carefully build use and associated investments. No big expensive moves or surprises at the start. You don't need to do that. As and if use builds and investments are warranted, then there could be increased expenditure over a 5 to 6 year time frame. So for all phases, there should be better lighting, bike racks, seating, landscaping, just to kind of up the, at least people can feel comfortable sitting there. Phase 1, 22, 23, a little tight to do this now, but if COVID hadn't happened, maybe. So we're thinking of a pergola, covered seating, landscaping, bike racks, retain the food truck entry, that's really key. Keep that alive. Diana Crawl installation, continue to activate the remaining space through programming in the night market, consider a temperate, well, I used to play hockey, I love this one. I think it's doable, whoops. Consider a temporary portable ice rink. All right, and then phase 2, pick a time frame, have to extend it out now, but creative paver installation and landscaping, library, coffee shop, cafe, kiosks along the library, CCU awnings to be used for covered activities, retractable stage, entertainment, flex space development, projection mapping and murals on the Port Theatre back wall, museum way stage, craft space, flex space, connect to Coast Bastion better, food trucks clustered near airspace parcel. And then phase 3, restaurant and terrace dining on the airspace parcel, elevated walkway to the waterfront, Wharf Street ethnic dining kiosks with seating, dedicated food truck area and art walk connection to Bastion Street, water fountain feature embedded in Wharf Street, and then a partial CCU first floor redevelopment into retail and restaurant. So these are the next steps that are proposed. Pretty basic stuff, and an opportunity to do this maybe. This happened on September 3rd of this year. So first of the month, early in the month, Labor Day weekend, it was happening. And you know what? We can do this. People want to do this. It's just they need help and assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, is there any questions for Mr. Whitty?
I have one.
Councilor Perino?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Whitty, great to have you here, and I love it all, as you knew I would. I just wanted to thank you once again for the work that you did on the mural on the library. I know that definitely the Community Foundation and the input that you had made that a reality, and it's absolutely spectacular, and
Well, thank you.
can't thank you enough.
Well, we see, when that happened, it was, for those of us involved in this advisory committee, said, the light went on, said first stage, first step, right?
Sure did.
Yep.
Sure did. It just shows what can be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Manley?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Whitty, for this presentation. Did I hear you correct that the Coastal Community Credit Union is interested in redesigning that space? Because I think that's amazing. That's what the Diana Crawl Plaza needed all along, was a restaurant on that level, and a place where people could be, bring a regular presence in there, and we've tried other things in that square, the big screen, that we had the community stage there for a little while, but really having people in the square on a regular basis is what we need. So is that correct? They're interested
So it's
in doing
not,
that?
they don't own that airspace. It's another individual that owns properties around Nanaimo, owns that airspace, and had a representative at the Charette.
But they've shown a willingness to give up on that space.
They've shown willingness to explore. They're going to explore if there's an economic opportunity. If it would be kind of one of those later stage developments. If that space is vibrant, that's a viable place to have a restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Manley. I'm going to interrupt before Ian goes, because I did have a question on the airspace, because part of that is federal government airspace as well, or is that towards the coast, that's the federal government?
No, it's private airspace that we looked at.
Because there is federal government airspace down there by the coast, so it wouldn't have any play then?
Space we looked at is private airspace.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Thorpe?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you, if I may, thank you, Dr. Whitty. Really appreciate your work on this and for updating us.
Thank you.
It seems like it's been a while since we've seen these ideas. Similar to Councillor Manley, I'm really interested in the idea of the airspace restaurant or some type of restaurant in that area. And I've always found myself thinking of the Chemainus Theatre arrangement, where they have the Show Bill Lounge, I think it's called, and it's connected directly to the theater. In your planning, in your charrettes, did you have involvement from the Port Theatre? Would they have any interest in pursuing something like that and being a partner?
No, we didn't involve the Port Theatre at that time, no.
All right, well, that answers my question. It just seems to me that it's Diana Krall Plaza. Diana Krall is famous as an entertainer, and the Port Theatre is where she would entertain and has entertained. And it would be nice if there was a more direct connection, but in my mind, between the plaza and the theater.
Well, there could be. And that back wall could be screened, and I think one organization, there's an opportunity to have live shows in the theater, broadcast them on that back wall. And I don't, if you go up the hill, you can see that wall. I mean, then you'd have to tap into an audio feed from your phone, your iPhone, or whatever. But it's absolutely doable. Could be absolutely, you could celebrate, have several thousand people celebrate a concert, maybe, about something special for the community, or some national event, yeah, or just a regular show. Absolutely.
Lots of opportunities.
It'd be totally animated on that wall. Oh, yeah.
Right, thanks.
Okay, and I guess I have the last question. Has this, I know another plan has come to the Accessibility and Diversity, or I guess, I don't know what we call it, AK. Have you brought this forward to that committee yet for their comments?
No.
Perhaps that's something we could look at a future date as well, because they had some concerns around pavers, et cetera, for mobility issues. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay,
Whitty.
thank you.
All right. We have no committee minutes. We're going to motion for adoption of consent items. Is there anybody that wishes to remove any items to be considered separately after the motion for adoption has been moved and seconded? Seeing none, so could I please have a motion for the adoption?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Perino. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Where are we here? We now are going to delegations unrelated to agenda items. For those following, it's item 11. Our first one will be Ann Martin, Board Director, Take a Height Foundation, read the impacts of the city's 2023 grant in aid. Ms. Martin is joining us by Zoom, I believe, Ms. Gurry. There she is, Ms. Martin.
Hi, good afternoon. I was going to say good morning. So my name is Ann Martin. I'm on the board of directors for the Take a Hike Foundation. I volunteered with the organization for the past 4 years, and it is extremely dear to my heart. So before I start, I just want to acknowledge and thank the Snuneymuxw people on whose traditional lands my family and I live and where I work. I am very honored today to personally thank you for the gift the city has given our organization. In January of this year, the city of Nanaimo provided a $10,000 social planning grant to support the Take a Hike Youth Mental Health Foundation's Nanaimo program. These funds ensured that over 30 participating youth had, inside their alternative education classroom, consistent access to a full-time registered mental health clinician 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, even periodically throughout the summer. In addition, this grant helped to make sure that each youth had more than 300 hours of outdoor land-based learning and 2 multi-day wilderness trips, which helps to build resilience and deepen relationships, which are key to their success. I'm sure it's no surprise, I heard at the very beginning of this call some of the significant challenges the city is facing. One of those, no doubt, is the mental health crisis. The youth that Take a Hike supports are facing significant barriers such as mental health, behavioral challenges, substance use, or risky behavioral patterns such as crime. These vulnerabilities at such a critical stage in development affect the way young people remember, attend, learn, and make decisions. By supporting Take a Hike, you are not only effectively furthering your goals as outlined in the Nanaimo Youth Resiliency Strategy, but you're also investing in a program model that is evidence-based, proven to support measurable outcomes for these youth and help them thrive and find success. Last year's cohort, the Take Hike Foundation, saw 9 youth walk the stage and graduate. And I'm telling you, this is an incredible milestone because many of these kids never expected to graduate. They now have a very solid foundation to equip them later in life with better mental health and hope for the future. That $10,000 grant that the City of Nanaimo gave us saw a social return of between $56,000 and $134,000 in just 1 year through the reduction in hospitalizations, homelessness, and substance abuse for these youth. But before I go, I just want to leave you with probably something that I hope really sticks with you. It's a story that's shared by one of the grandparents of the youth that attended our Nanaimo program. So I'm going to quote the letter that they wrote. In January of 2022, our daughter and family moved to Nanaimo from Port Alberni, a big change and change in schools. Our 16-year-old granddaughter has been identified with a variety of special needs. The family hoped that a good match could be found, and was it ever? She was accepted and enrolled in the Take a Hike alternate program at Woodland School. It has been a godsend. She has learned to use the city buses. She leaves home with a bounce in her step and a smile on her face, and she attends school every day. She discusses academics, class activities, and for the very first time has a circle of friends. She talks freely about the positive impact the staff and program have had on her self-worth. To quote her from an email she sent to her teachers, "I lost hope in the school system. I thought it was a lost cause. Coming to the school gave me so much trust in the school and gave me hope that some people like me are able to get help. You gave me purpose." Every aspect of her being has been changed for the better. It is exciting for us to see the difference and growth emerge in such a short time. Accolades to the caring and devoted staff of this program and the support received from the administration, district, community, and the Take a Hike Foundation. This unique program is indeed making a difference. So with that, sticking with my 5 minutes, although I tell you I could go on about this program at length, you should see the phenomenal outcomes it produces for these youth. We are deeply grateful for your partnership and the work, and acknowledge that the City of Nanaimo is incredibly committed to supporting initiatives that provide upstream preventative support to local young people. And we welcome the opportunity to partner with you in the future and explore ways to work together to support youth in Nanaimo who need it most.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martin, and thank you very much for sharing the story and the work that you are doing to help with our vulnerable youth. Is there any counselors wish to speak to the delegation? It's hard for me to see this sign. No. I'm not seeing any, so once again, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for your support.
You're welcome. Next, we have Carrie Daniels, Linda Jack, and Faye Thomas, Women's Poverty Response Circle. A group introduction and call for further engagement with City Council and other decision makers regarding housing. And ladies, you'll have 5 minutes, and I'll warn you at the 4-minute marker when you're ready to start. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Carrie Daniels, a member of the Women's Poverty Response Cycle. We are artists, chefs, caterers, matriarchs, activists, knowledge keepers, storytellers, teachers, and we are the definition of strength. We are determined and stand together to support each other in friendship, love, and freedom. Our cultures give us strength, and together our voices are strong. Our connection is strengthened by our strong bonds and loyalty to each other, and we are committed to fairness and equality. As a circle, we value the confidence we have when we come together to share, celebrate, and support each other. We are funded by the Women and Gender Equality of Canada and hosted by Mid-Island Métis Nation. Our vision is to empower marginalized low-income women. We are here to bring awareness about the many effects of poverty which we face on a daily basis. This includes the high cost of rent, for which most of us, it's 60% of our income. The high cost of food, which has seen an increase of 6.3% in the last year, according to the Consumer Price Index. And an inability to afford social and leisure activities, which are important for our well-being and the chronic stress we have. We are here today to create awareness of our group and our work and invite you to work in partnership with our group to address the issues in a meaningful, action-oriented way. We meet every Tuesday, and we're here to invite you to one of our group sessions, which meets every Tuesday. Sheila Malcolmson has been invited, has also been invited. Thank you for your time, and I will now turn it over to Faye, who will share her experience with low-income housing for trying to better her situation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Faye Thomas, and I'm a proud member of Snaimo First Nations. And I've been a member of the Women's Poverty Group since the beginning, so it's been going on 2 years now. And I'm going to read what I wrote. I just wanted to share my experience of living in subsidized housing. I'm very aware of the procedures of subsidized housing, 30% of your income. Last October, I took a course hosted by FoodShare called Cultivating Abilities. They assist in getting you first aid, food safe, and getting you ready to enter the workforce. I got a job with Friends of Haven Thrift Store as a sales associate dealing with the public. After 6 months of my job, I had to make a decision of staying or leaving my employment. My rent had just a bit over doubled, and if I stayed with the job, my rent would be very high in April 2024 rent review. With my age and health willing, I chose to leave my job. I need to look to the future to secure a safe home. I had offers to move with family, but I like my independence. Moving to a regular landlord situation is out of reach from myself, with a high cost of rents for everyone. I hope somewhere that the elected officials at least put a cap on rental situations for Nanaimo residents. Thank you.
1 minute left.
Okay. Hi, my name is Linda Koshalish from Duncan, BC. I'm the founder of Eagle Feather Reliteracy, and found a lot of people that can't read and spell, and it's a big, huge thing for our people from the day school and stuff, and it's been really hard for our people that can't read and spell, so I've been fighting for our schooling to want to be heard. They do have class, but they only have it Monday and Wednesday, and I feel that's not good enough for our people, and our elders are fighting for education. I've been finding a lot of people, so it's been really hard walking around the dark all these years, and I really like to be heard that I want schooling to Monday to Thursday, and it's a big, huge thing. I've been doing a lot of working around that, walking with other people and tell them not to walk with their head down anymore, walk with their head up. So like, I said, we need to be heard that we really need our education, and I got goals and dreams ahead of my lifetime, and I can't do it if I can't read or spell, and so I really want to thank you guys for hearing me. And it's, we're living by check. So if I get my disability, I have to wait for a whole month before I see money again. And that's how I lived through all these years with of our people within pension and welfare. That's even harder.
Thank you, and you're right on time.
Yeah.
So if you ladies would just like to stay, we may have some questions for you from some of the council members. Councilor Perino?
Thank you so much for being here. Great presentation from all three of you. It's nerve-wracking at best when you've got a lot of people around, so thank you for speaking to all of us. Tell me, you said that you've got meetings on Tuesdays, and we might be able to attend.
Yeah, we invite you to attend.
Where are they?
So we're having one tomorrow.
Could you please speak into the mic so our other people can,
We're
thank you.
having one on tomorrow night in the conference center here.
Okay, so maybe we could find out.
4:30 to 6:30, but I can't remember the room number.
Oh, that's all right.
We have RDN.
It would just be, it'd be wonderful to be able to come at some point and.
Yeah, that would be great if some of you could come. We would welcome you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the delegation for coming forward and speaking. I know it's not always easy, and I know you, Linda, and I know your story well, and the situation you dealt with, not getting the education that you we're promised in the day school, residential schools. And I will try to attend one of your Tuesday events, and just wanted to thank you and for expressing what you're dealing with, which is really legislated poverty. So I do hope that Minister Malcolmson will come and visit you as well. Take care.
Thank you, Councillor Manley. Councillor Eastmere? You're on mute.
Thank you. I just really want to thank the women for coming to the meeting to share your story. And I did have a chance to meet with the with this group a couple of weeks ago, and it was just it was great to see the support that these women are able to offer each other. And I think that for a long time, living in poverty, there's a shame cycle there, and the power and the support that you get from raising your voice about this issue, and to have created this safe space for women to come and discuss the real challenges that they're up against is just so valuable. And so I really raise my hands to everyone who's made this possible, and to the women who are supporting each other and discussing possible solutions. And it was meaningful to meet with you and to hear about the affordability challenges in our community, especially around the cost of rental housing. So I hope that as a council we'll keep working on housing affordability. I know we're really dedicated to that issue, as well as food security. And I hope that Minister Malcolmson does take you up on your invitation, because you have a lot of lived experience that is really valuable to share. So thank you so much for being brave and speaking out about this issue.
Thank you, Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to add, Faye, I remember when you said that you had to give up your job or else face eviction. That's pretty sad.
Yeah,
the
rent was going high. And if I carried on working, my rent review in 2024, that's why I stopped working, is because my rent review in 2024 would be very high and over market rent.
Yeah, they need to find a solution, because for a lot of people, that connection to people when you're working is very important. So I'm sorry that you're going through this, and I will say that we're fortunate that we do have a few hundred units coming on board soon with partnership with Snamo First Nation and the Tuxton land on 5th Street. So hopefully that will help alleviate some of it. It's nowhere near enough, but we are working towards it, as Councillor Hammond said at our meetings with the ministers. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
We're now on to reports. Property tax exemption bylaw for 2024 property taxes, to be introduced by Ms. Mercer, Director of Finance.
Thank you. So the community charter identifies situations in which council may exercise discretion in granting full or partial exemptions from taxation. So these exemptions must be adopted by bylaw before October 31st of the year preceding exemption. So in 2023, there were 3 council-added properties. One was the Boys and Girls Club of Central Vancouver Island for their location at 1985 Boxwood Road. We had Bolinas Housing Society for their head office at number 3, 1200 Princess Royal Avenue. That was formerly occupied by the Island Crisis Care Society, so it was exempt last year, and it will continue to be exempt in 2024. Our third property was for the Canadian Mental Health Association Mid-Island branch at 250 Albert Street. This was on the bylaw last year, but it was a partial exemption because they had some rented space in their building, and now it's a full, they get the full PTE. We had one legal agreement addition, and that was for the Island Corridor Foundation for their location at 321 Selby Street. And this was given exempt status in a shared license of occupation agreement. So we've picked up that administrative error there. And that makes 173 properties listed on the bylaw. And it has an estimated 2024 value of exemption of approximately $2,046,000. So for council's information, staff have undertaken a PTE review of all property exemptions, and this work will continue into 2024. So all of the letters have gone out to all the organizations that are currently on the PTE bylaw, and they will need to reapply to be on the bylaw for next year going forward. And that's been a long time in the works. We've just haven't had the staff to do it. So now we are staffed up so we can do that. And as well, at the same time, our current grants policy and guidelines will be reviewed for updating where necessary. And once the review is complete, staff will come back to council with recommendations. And in addition to the PTE review, staff will report back to council on PTEs for affordable and recovery housing as well. So that'll all come in 2024. And so we're here looking for first 3 readings of the bylaw.
Thanks, Ms. Mercer. Councillor Giesbrecht.
I move that the property tax exemption bylaw 2023 number 7368, bylaw to exempt certain land and building from taxation, pass first reading.
Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. Number 2.
Move that the property tax exemption bylaw 2023 number 7368 pass second reading.
Seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Councillors, does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask of staff at this time?
Just
Councillor
question. Thank you. Just wanted to ask Ms. Mercer a question about the 4 properties that we were talking about, the affordable housing. Would you just repeat what you said at the very end of your presentation? You were talking about when they will be addressed? Or affordable housing projects, in other words, yes.
Through the chair to Councillor Perino. Yes, we will be coming back to council or Finance and Audit Committee with a report on how to move forward and give options for council to consider if they would like to pursue that permissive tax exemption, because it is currently not in our policy.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, following up on the review and including affordable housing into the permissive tax exemption, would we ever consider permissive tax exemptions for individual homeowners who rent out rooms?
Through the chair to Councillor Hemmons. So under the permissive tax exemption, they generally need to be societies or not-for-profit registered organizations. So it could be something that I guess we could look at, and then we'll include that in a report.
Follow-up, Councillor Hemmons?
No, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Councillor Giesbrecht.
Move that the property tax exemption bylaw 2023 number 7368 pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Mercer. Winter maintenance policy to be introduced by Mr. Sims, General Manager, Engineering Public Works. Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Chair. We're here in front of Council actually with 3 separate distinct policies and 3 separate reports, so that you may choose them individually or, but we wanted to present them all at the same time. So essentially the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia, or MIABC, provides insurance for 170 municipalities. Its municipalities are self-insured. And so they've really recommended upping all municipalities up their game when it comes to having written policies around, some basic stuff which can expose us to liability. And so Supreme Court decision recently had defined a core policy, and that's what we're here tonight for. A core policy considers the level of the decision maker and the level of, so we can bring it to council and have that as a decision of the core policy. That's critical. And then how things are balanced out, and I'm thinking of the finite resources that municipalities have. So as mentioned, Chair, there's 3 policies for your consideration. Winter maintenance, which really defines level of service, and pothole maintenance and sidewalk maintenance. We'd be happy to take questions as we go on all 3, but we thought this was also a good opportunity to provide our usual annual snow and ice control update, and we'll try not to bore you with that one. Mr. Thompson is here to do that. But really, the core policy is intended to provide clarity for the public, for council, and for city staff as far as the work we do. And we've been told over and over and over again by our insurance MIABC that policies should be a minimum standard, not aspirational. So we're always free to exceed the bare minimum policy, and if we do, that's great. But we need to sort of establish a floor for our standard of care, and that's what these policies are intended to do.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Good evening, Madam Chair, councillors. As Mr. Sims introduced this, these are presented as core policies for the City of Nanaimo, presented as 3 separate reports primarily for tracking purpose, so we can keep track of each one individually. And as core policies, again, these are seeking decision and thoughtful consideration at the highest level of the organization. So the policies, as we've written them, document the what and how we mitigate potential liabilities in these 3 areas. So as Mr. Sims said, they represent the minimum standard. The first one to discuss is our winter maintenance policy. This is a very short version of what you've seen historically, so I will keep it short as well. Speaking both, this policy covers both public works and parks operations activities as they relate to snow and ice control. So the map you see here is the roads and traffic priorities. There are 3 different priority levels. They've been set in conjunction with key stakeholders, emergency services, transit. They identify major transportation corridors, and they ensure that the business of the city can continue during an event. Similarly, Parks Operations has set priorities based on recreation access opportunities during winter event and taking responsibility for civic facility frontages. There's, in addition to the approximately 1,100 lane kilometers of roadway, there's over 100 distinct locations that Parks Operations services. And they also look after our active transportation routes, which are growing every year. We have a variety of tools that we use to carry out these activities. We've got trucks and salt and brine. We've got smaller equipment for more targeted. These are for active transportation and parking lots and parks operations activities, right down to snow blowers and people with shovels out and around the city. In terms of the service levels, just what we do on the ground, it's one thing to write things on a piece of paper and have an image in your mind. It's another thing to see the practices in action. So a priority 1 road, we activate our priority 1s when we get to 2 inches of snow accumulation on the roadway. Then our fleet goes out. We continue on the priority 1 routes until the accumulations cease, and then we move into the 2s and 3s. One of the things to note is snowplows can only do so much work. Really, what really helps move the snow off the road is the traffic, activating the salt and the brine to melt the snow and move it off. You'll see the picture on the left. That is the bottom of Rutherford Hill. It is very obvious where the traffic is going. They're all turning right off of Rutherford onto Hammond Bay. And similarly, the weather really helps us out a lot. Once the temperatures hit some critical thresholds, moisture starts moving off the road very rapidly. As we move into the priority 2 and 3s, we're dealing with accumulation that may have been there for a while, so we're moving the fluffy stuff off and again relying on traffic to continue that activity. Where roads have low traffic volumes, they're going to stay in a packed snow state, so it's absolutely incumbent on travelers to be prepared for weather conditions, whether they're driving, walking, cycling, or otherwise. And that is the winter maintenance policy. Happy to take any questions at this point or continue on.
Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Chair. I actually have 2 questions, if I might, Mr. Thompson. The policy, the council policy, which we got a copy of so that we could read through, is excellent, by the way. I just wondered, for my own knowledge, it talks about under snow removal, it says the City of Nanaimo does not remove snow. I'm assuming that you mean to actually pick it up and take it away. Is that correct?
Correct. Okay. We remove the snow, we clear the snow from the road surface or the other surface that we're working on. We push it to the side. We do not remove snow. Okay. That involves federal actions.
Okay, no, that's great.
Higher level of service.
Okay, I just wanted to check. And also, and I was talking to Mr. Sims about this, we received an email this afternoon from a family member that talked about their area being a priority area, given the population of where they live. And I just wondered if you could just briefly explain why you can do it for some, like the hospital and obviously schools and things like that, but not so much others.
As as I said, we've set these priorities in conjunction with emergency services, transit, major transportation corridors. I did see that
Yes.
email.
Yes.
That sounded like a road where people live, nothing more. And if we, obviously council can choose to change the priorities, but I would caution on equitable decisions across the city. We've got 90 square kilometers to cover and 1,100 kilometers of roadway, limited resources. So what we can do is written in this policy, and as Mr. Sims said, we can exceed that. I'm always happy when we exceed the minimum standards, but I would caution council against making rash decisions or might have unintended consequences.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just add a little bit too, just to round out the question, was really around the, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, we had BC Transit, emergency services, fire, police, ambulance, all sort of working together several years ago to establish what sort of those minimum thresholds were, and really the focus is on providing emergency service, right? We're trying to create, you know, the emergency routes for those emergency services. We're trying to make sure that the transit routes are open so that people can take transit. Our major arterial roads are open. Those are our priority ones. Our priority twos slip more into connector roads that sort of join up the priority ones, and then lastly, the priority threes. And Parks Operations, Mr. Groot's on the line for any specific questions there, have a similar approach to where the needs are as well. I would say, similar to what Mr. Thompson said, the low volume residential roads are not the priority. And as harsh as it might sound, it's not the public convenience that we're serving. We're serving the emergency access. And I will always underscore, and emergency services know to reach out if they have a remote call to go to, whether it's police, fire, or ambulance. They can call Public Works because we're often running 24 hours a day, and we'll scramble vehicles to make sure that emergency services can get in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Manley?
I can't remember the exact number, but maybe Mr. Sims can remind us, but the mayor is fond of saying that we have over 700 cul-de-sacs in this community, and so you've chosen to live on a nice quiet street. You may not get the snow removal that you desire, the level of snow removal, but that's the trade-off that people have. Is that a correct number, 700 and some?
Chair, I'm sorry to say that Councillor Manley's a little low on his estimate. It's actually nearly 800 at this point in time, so it's challenging, as you can imagine, to clear all those small streets.
Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, could you have somebody move the motion, please? So moved. Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All right, next we have the pothole management or maintenance policy. Mr. Sims?
Thanks, Chair. Similar, this is a core policy that we don't have a specific presentation on, but it's really, again, setting a minimum standard. And the intent really is to be a reactive policy. So when we observe, whether city staff on patrol observe a pothole or we get a complaint from the public, then there's standards that we respond within a certain amount of time. And that's the policy, again, sets that minimum standard.
Mr. Thompson, are you presenting?
Thank you. I'll make a few more comments. So this policy reflects our current capacity and processes in effectively controlling the liability presented by potholes. They primarily occur as a result of freeze-thaw cycles. And just as a matter of context, in the last winter season, we responded to approximately 93 potholes that we were made aware of. And this is part of our broader integrated road maintenance program, which includes a significant effort on preventative maintenance and early intervention. I would say that the 93 is a low number for a municipality of our size, which I think speaks to the strength of the program and the effectiveness in managing this potential liability.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Hemmons?
Thanks, Chair. I recall discussion some time ago of using an app that residents could take photographs of potholes of and upload them, and then they would be prioritized in the city work plan. Is that still on the books?
Through Madam Chair, we trialed a program that you described. It was reasonably effective, but and we're now looking at more advanced systems that do the same thing and more. So I'm working on that as we speak.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, could somebody move the motion, please? Moved by Councilor Perino, seconded by Councilor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Sidewalk policy, Mr. Sims.
I'll ask Mr. Sidewalk himself, Mr. Thompson, to just
Thank
introduce
you.
this. Thank you, Chair.
So number 3, the last one you'll see of me tonight. This is our sidewalk maintenance program. Again, it is reflective of our current capacity and processes. It is, as with the potholes, a reactive process. Our sidewalk maintenance is part of a larger sidewalk maintenance program, which includes debris removal and trimming back grass and other growth on the sidewalk to make sure that they're passable for pedestrians. The sidewalk failures that result in liabilities are primarily a result of root intrusion from street trees. So we understand that issue, and we work very closely with Parks and Recreation folks who are responsible for street trees, and with developers to make sure that the appropriate trees go in the appropriate location. There may be other failure mechanisms, but that's primarily what it is. So we have a close partnership with Parks and Rec to identify those trees and make sure that where they're interfering with the sidewalk, the safe use of the sidewalk, that they're dealt with appropriately. And we're happen to be doing that on Nickel Street as we speak, so it works. Again, it is reactive. We find out about something. This policy identifies the process and the timelines that we work towards to manage that liability for the city.
Thank you. Any questions, council? Seeing none, if I could have somebody move the motion. Moved by Councilor Geselbrecht, seconded Councilor Perino. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Community Environmental Sustainability Project Grant to be introduced by Mr. Lindsay. Or is that you, Mr. Holmes? Mr. Holmes, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually going to very quickly turn it over to Mr. Stewart, who's going to walk council through, introduce this set of criteria and guidelines to help guide awarding of the Community Environmental Sustainability Project Grant. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, or sorry, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here today to introduce a new grant to support the community environmental action. The grant's intended to be in line with the green goals of the city plan. The grants will support small-scale community sustainability projects of up to $5,000 per project, if approved. We have $20,000 of funding available and previously included in the financial plan. That funding is available through the local government climate action program funding that we receive from the provincial government. The grant will be open to nonprofit groups, neighborhood associations, school groups, religious organizations, stewardship groups, and participants in the city and regional districts acting for Climate Together program for city residents only, I should clarify. The grant will be in addition to the watershed restoration grant that we launched last year, and will support projects outside the scope of the watershed grant. If supported by council, the grant will launch next week and be included on the December 13 Finance and Audit meeting for awarding of grants. Available for any questions.
You have a question? No. Anybody on council have questions? Seeing none, if I could have someone move the recommendation. Moved by Council Geselbrecht, seconded by Council Perino. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Development permit application DP 1279 at 2595 Bowen Road. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This development permit application is it's been received by DHK Architects, and it's for an automotive dealership. You can see overhead or on the screen. outlined in red, the property on the corner of Bowen Road and the Island Highway, currently the site of the Mitsubishi dealership. So very prominent location. The proposal is a dealership that varies in height from building form from 1 to 3 stories. The proposal includes a number of variances that include front yard setback, building height, a landscape buffer, and parking and loading space variances. If you could bring up the building renderings, attachment E, please. It'll give you an idea of what the building looks like. The proposal was received by the Design Advisory Panel with recommendations that have been addressed by the applicant to the extent possible. The application is consistent with the applicable development permit area guidelines, and I'm happy to take any questions. That's all I have to say on this one. Thank you.
Any questions, Council? Council Gessbrook?
Move that council issue development permit number DP 1279 for automobile sales, service, and rental development at 2595 Bowen Road with variances outlined in the proposed variance section. The staff report titled Development Permit Application Number DP 1279 2595 Bowen Road dated 2023 September 25th.
Seconder? Councilor Perino? Any discussion, Council? Hang on. Councilor Perino.
Sorry, Chair, just a very quick question through you. I'm just wondering, Mr. Holmes, so with this development permit, should it pass, what happens next?
Well, the property would be, the applicant, the owner, actually would be able to apply for a building permit application.
Okay.
That would be the next step in the process.
Okay, good, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Development permit application DP 1287-1880 Dufferin Crescent. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application is to vary a number of setbacks, front yard setbacks for an existing building located on the corner of East Wellington and Town Site. This is opposite of Quarterway School. A number of revisions to the building construction took place without required permits. This is a commercial building within Core 3 zoned property. Setback variances are required to allow a building permit to rectify the non-permitted construction to be approved. The variances are outlined overhead. Setback variances, given the proximity of the existing building to required or to property lines, setback variances are required to allow that permit to proceed to rectify non-permitted construction. Happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Seeing none at this time. Councilor Perino, do you have a question?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Councilor Gessbrook?
You can just move the motion, Council Gessbrook. You don't need to read out the DP.
Move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councilor Thorpe. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Next, we have development permit application number DP 1308-855 Douglas Avenue. Be Mr. Holmes, followed by the delegation, Mr. Chapman.
Councillor Armstrong, I think you're one ahead of us. We're on Dufferin Crescent now.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Thank you.
Development permit application DP 1287-1880 Dufferin Crescent. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application is another prominent property, corner of Boxwood and Dufferin, in the Green Rock Industrial Park. What's proposed here is a single-tenant contractor's office, and the proposal is consistent with the applicable development permit area guidelines. The proposal includes a 3-story building, 11 meters in height, and addresses the prominent corner well with varied form in the building and quite substantial glazing. And it's been reviewed by the Design Advisory Panel and supported with no additional recommendations. And a number of minor variances are requested, including flanking side yard, reduced landscape buffer, and the reduction of a loading space. I'm happy to take questions on this one. Thanks.
Any questions, council? Seeing none, can someone move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Perino. Seeing no further questions or comments, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Now we'll go to development permit application DP 1308-855 Douglas Avenue. Mr. Holmes, followed by Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application will be familiar with Council. Council considered it at its meeting of August 28th and denied the permit at that point for reasons that the principle of net gain had not been demonstrated and the required reporting had not been submitted at that point in time. What's requested here is a watercourse leaf strip variance from 30 meters to 4.5 meters to allow the construction of a detached secondary suite. You can see the property outlined in red overhead. You can tell, as was explained previously and in the report, a substantial portion of the property is within a ravine that is high-valued habitat adjacent to the Chase River. The report has been resubmitted, provided for Council's consideration at this point with additional information submitted, and as well as conditions to address the principle of net gain. I'm happy to walk through those in more detail, but or take questions, and I believe there's a delegation that wishes to speak to this as well.
I think we'll have the delegation and then we'll ask questions after. Mr. Chapman, 5 minutes, as you're aware.
Hello, my name is Paul Chapman with the Nanaimo and Area Land Trust. I live in the city of Nanaimo in Nanaimo territory. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. I want to clarify something about the letter from NALT that's attached to this agenda. It's characterized as a letter of support, but that's really an overstatement. NALT doesn't support one development over another. The letter is meant more as commentary that the landowner had worked to meet the intent of the bylaw. You might be able to characterize the letter as more of sort of fan mail around Part 18 of the bylaw, and I'd like to speak to that today. In July of 2022, Council unanimously adopted the current development permit guidelines. The major change in the bylaw was a shift from no net loss in the previous version to the principle of net gain. This is a significant change. No net loss cemented habitat loss brought about by previous actions on the land. Net gain seeks to restore the lost habitat. I want to read some excerpts from the bylaw that illustrate that change and note that the language of this bylaw applies to all ESAs, not just watercourse setbacks. So Part 18.1.4. Where disturbance within an ESA or ESA leave strip cannot be avoided, the following information must be provided in order to ensure protection, connectivity, and increased functional habitat through mitigation, compensation, and restoration of the ESA. F, a restoration and enhancement plan, and the plan shall meet the following criteria. It must include restoration and enhancement of ESAs that were impacted by previous development activities. The principle of net gain will be followed and must demonstrate how an increase in the quality and quantity of functional habitat within the ESA leave strip will be achieved, such that any areas restored will be of better ecological value and shall be contiguous with the original ESA leave strip. The following principles apply to establishing net gain. Outcomes through habitat creation, enhancement, and/or restoration, target conditions, which are functional habitat within 20 years, and a target metrics of twice the area of the encroachment of the leave strip. I think it's important to note that the current plan is looking at 4 times the enhancement of the disturbance in the ESA. And this is net gain. This is the bylaw, and this is good law. You are to be congratulated. You've made good law. You have found a path to net gain in housing and net gain in habitat. This is good law. When this particular permit was before Council for consideration in August, Both the QEP report and the staff report spoke to the requirements of the old bylaw, that is known net loss. I think it's important that we realize that even in today's report, on page 3 of the report, most of the language speaks to the old bylaw. Most of it speaks to no net loss. There have been some changes made to address no net gain, but when it talks about, you know, little functional habitat or no ecological value, the point of part 18.1.4 is to restore that habitat from previous disturbance. Again, this is really good bylaw. This achieves a gain in housing and a gain in habitat. And I guess I'd end with a couple questions with regards to the bylaw. And so, you know, the proof in the pudding is in the tasting. The proof in the bylaw, in this good law, is in the application. And so I have some questions around how is the new bylaw of Part 18 communicated to staff? And then how is that communicated to QEPs? And then how is it enforced? You know, who checks on the restoration work, and what are the ramifications if it's not completed?
Okay. Anybody from council wish to answer that question? No, just wait first. I want to see if anybody from council does first. Seeing none, then I'll go to Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, sure, through Madam Chair. So staff, of course, would be happy to sit down with Mr. Chapman and work through the specifics of how, and we have sat down with Mr. Chapman and worked through how the specifics of the bylaw are managed. We have a qualified environmental professional on staff. We have the environmental protection officer that's involved in reviewing these, in developing the guidelines at the outset, and as well as reviewing and providing recommendations on these reports, as well as the qualified environmental professionals that submit the reports. Obviously, each application is unique in its context, and the guidelines allow for allow for that to be considered. And yeah, we're happy to work through with Mr. Chapman how the guidelines are applied, and how the QEPs consider them, and how staff review them.
Thank you. I'd urge you to take that up. Any other questions for, hang on, Mr. Chapman. Councilor Perino, hang on just a sec. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, through you to Mr. Chapman. Thank you for being here, Mr. Chapman, and for giving us this added information. I was reading your letter, and I note that you do say, I am satisfied that the landowner understands the requirement of the bylaw. I accept that the restoration and the environmental professional and further detailed letter of rationale is a sincere effort to meet the requirements of the bylaw. You said this is not necessarily meant to be supportive, but you're...
It's not a letter of support, not because NALT will not write letters of support for developments. No, we're not in that business.
Of course, but it was helpful to read.
But I've certainly, you know, I've had conversations with the landowner, and I appreciate that they have made effort and added their energy to the reports to work to meet the bylaw.
Okay. Yeah, when I read this, I didn't think of it as a letter of support, but I was certainly pleased to read your comments. So thank you.
I also appreciate, because it was your comments last time that led me to not support the application. So I appreciate you taking the time to do the follow-up and bringing forward your comments as to what has occurred. Thank you. Is there anybody prepared? Any other questions? Sorry.
I just have a question to staff.
Councillor Kesselbrock for staff.
I'm just curious, like currently in how the development permit is set up in terms of monitoring or following up that the principle of net gain is followed through on. Is there any provisions currently in the development permit for this?
Yes, there are actually, and thank you through Madam Chair. So I think Councillor Gesselbrick will recall through the development of the guidelines, working with through the Environment Committee and with qualified environmental professionals, the practice in the city and apply the guidelines, monitoring and maintenance of those areas was definitely one of the key additional changes in addition to the principle of net gain being introduced. So yeah, there are provisions in the guidelines for, and we're looking for QEPs to recommend monitoring program for those areas that are improved. And we do have opportunity to review those and have inspections take place. Depends on the context and the sensitivity of the area and what's actually taken place. And whether or not there was disturbance to an environmentally sensitive area or not previously. I mean, in this case too, the context is, I mean, I would just add to that the city has had a significant environmental framework in place, watercourse protection in place for decades now and quite successful in achieving watercourse setback protection on newer development. Obviously in this case, and this is why I mentioned context, this lot was probably created in the early 1900s, you know, before those protection measures were in place. That's why there is an encroachment required here. But there are monitoring provisions within the development permit area guidelines, and QEPs are expected to submit monitoring programs with their work, and we'll watch that and follow up. We have an environmental protection officer that will visit these sites as necessary as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Just to follow up, you know, and I think that was the concern the original time that, you know, net gain wasn't explicitly mentioned or applied in this permit. And then, yeah, I'm not sure, you know, how much the QEP themselves also, when they, you know, assess the property, looked through it through that lens, and it probably is lacking a bit in a monitoring a scheme at this state. And I think going forward, you know, we do have this new bylaw, and I think, you know, recognizing that, you know, despite the historical lots, you know, our water courses have been degraded over time and not functioning at, you know, peak capacity. And this is an opportunity to, you know, allow development at the same time, sort of build back that integrity. So just want to, yeah, make that point moving forward. And, you know, thanks for the work on this.
Seeing no other questions, if somebody could move the recommendation, please. Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Perino. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to building bylaw amendments, implementation of BC Zero Carbon Step Code and update to BC Energy Step Code to be introduced by Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep this really brief. This is provided through council direction. Our building bylaws presented here, explained in the report that will implement the BC Zero Carbon Step Code that was enacted by the province in May of this year, and as well as update the city's implementation of the BC Energy Step Code to enhance the implementation of the BC Energy Step Code. These bylaw amendments as proposed would amend the city's building bylaw to achieve council's direction. The direction was provided August 28th by council following a recommendation from the July 26th Governance and Priorities Committee. Again, these bylaws would implement the direction provided by council on August 28th to implement the BC Zero Carbon Step Code and to enhance the implementation of the BC Energy Step Code. I'm happy to take questions. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we'll have our delegations first. We have two delegations that are attending via Zoom. First one I have on my list is Patrick Littlejohn.
Madam Chair.
Oh, is here in person?
Here in person.
Thank you.
Yes.
You may have the mic. And again, 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I returned. I was here a month ago when this was discussed previously, and advocated for this to be going ahead then, and just wanted to come back and continue to advocate in the same way. I'll just remind a couple of news items recently. When I was here a month ago, we were at 13.5 million hectares that were burned and about 5,500 fires that were in Canada. I think that there were another 1.5 million since then, and about 600 more wildfires in the country. I think that helps support the urgency of this measure and other things that that City Council can do to address this challenge. I think also when we think about where money is coming from and where it's going to around climate change, I think that it's important to appreciate that it's not just the dollars associated with natural gas installation and whatnot, but that climate change impacts all kinds of stuff. BC as a tourism economy, I think, really takes it on the chin when big forests burn down. And so this was a note that in the hundreds of millions of dollars were irreparably lost from climate change in British Columbia. And then a little more directly closer to home, I just wanted to highlight that Nanaimo City Council has been targeted by the Canadian Energy Centre, Alberta, or colloquially known as Alberta's War Room. And I think it's just really important to note that these are large corporate interests, fossil fuel interests that will try and influence people all over the place. And I wanted to highlight in particular the courage of council in passing this measure before, as well as individual contribution of Councillor Giselbrecht, if I said that right, for speaking up about this kind of pressure. I think these things are really important to appreciate because it's really clear that fossil fuel is a lot of people's dollars and cents business for outside actors, but I think that the business of what happens in this community is our business, and so it's important to draw those distinctions. And so I really encourage the council here today to advance these measures further and to continue addressing climate change and by making meaningful actions wherever possible. I think that was the last of my bit here. Thanks.
Any questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Reset. Our next one is Richard Bice. I hope I have that right, via Zoom.
Yes, that's correct. Hello, Madam Chair and Nanaimo City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. As you say, my name is Richard Bice. I'm with Capital Home Energy. We're a licensed service organization through Natural Resources Canada and an energy advisor company working primarily on Part 9 residential homes. We specialize in the BC Energy Step Code, Net Zero, and EnerGuide ratings. We work throughout southern BC, including the island, and have many projects that we work on in Nanaimo. The feedback we've been receiving from builders that we work with in the industry is that it's not quite ready to move to an all-electric heating and domestic water systems. All-electric is costly for the homeowners to install and operate, especially with the cost of electricity, which does not seem to be coming down. Also, we're seeing with all-electric homes that there's not enough room on the electrical panel. Homeowners are having to increase the power supply from 200 amp to 400 amp service. This also significantly increases the cost of building a new home or renovating an existing home, and also limits mechanical choices from the marketplace. The energy choice or energy source should be the consumer's choice, especially with the cost of electricity and electrical infrastructure. The provincial guideline is for zero carbon step code to be adopted in 2030. I like this approach because the builders and consumers then have the freedom of choosing the energy source while moving to the gradual implementation of the zero carbon step code.
Are you finished, sir?
Yes.
Excuse me, no clapping, thank you. I appreciate that you've all got your concerns, but we don't allow that at this time. Any questions for the Delegations Council? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Okay, just for those here, the process now is that we will go into, because that this is actually a reading of the bylaw, first reading, there'll be no questions or any discussion by council. If council wishes to discuss it, it will be at second reading, and then at third reading will be the vote. So if I could please have you read the first motion, Councilor Giselbrecht.
Move that Building Amendment Bylaw 2023, number 7224.05, to introduce zero carbon step code and revise BC Energy Step Code regulations, pass first reading.
All in favor?
Seconded.
No, seconded, sorry.
No,
Second.
I'm not seconding.
You're not seconding? No. Seconder, we need, can somebody from the, seconded by Councillor Brown. All in favor? Please leave your hands up. Councillor Hemmons, Eastmere, Brown, Manley, and Geselbrecht opposed. Armstrong, Thorpe, and Perino. Thank you. Second reading, please.
That building amendment bylaw 2023 number 7224.05 pass second reading.
Seconder, Councillor Hemmons. Discussion, Council. Councillor Geselbrecht, I believe you had some discussion you wanted to put to the table.
You know, this has been debated quite extensively. I think, you know, in the last little while, there's been quite a lot of interest in this decision. And so I would just, you know, quickly summarize this motion and bylaws is about Nanaimo taking responsibility for its fair share of emissions reduction. You know, we are facing significant costs and challenges, insurance costs because of floods, fire, heat domes are increasing. We're spending more on emergency management and also, you know, the municipal infrastructure that we're having to upgrade to deal with these extreme weather events. Collectively, we're in a bind because CO2 emissions keep rising, and who takes responsibility to start reducing them? And I think that council 10 years ago, this has been a long time issue, set targets to be 30% below their 2010 levels. And 2020, when we went out and measured, we were actually 18% higher than where we were. And that's 11% more than what could be accounted to population growth. And so despite recognizing the problem and setting targets, we're still even outpacing what we'd expect from population growth. And I think if things keep continuing the way that we're going and we're not taking any meaningful measure, I think there's an accountability of some, you know, group denialism that we can continue on the path that we're doing. And our consultant that we hired to look at our emissions very clearly said that you're not going to reduce your emissions if you continue heating homes using fossil fuels, and you have to fuel switch. And this council is committed. We're committed to evidence-based policy, and we have the technology now available to switch our homes over to be heated from high-efficiency electric systems. And now we have, you know, provincial legislation that actually allows us to enact it. And we have to make this decision. There's no way that we'll meet our targets if we don't accelerate this and implement it next year, because we're just adding new carbon emissions to our city. And for a small city like Nanaimo, not taking responsibility for emissions, for the big emitters, we're sending the message that, you know what, it's nobody's responsibility. Well, how can we expect somebody else to reduce their emissions if we don't do our own? So I know there's concerns around affordability, and I don't really buy it. The information that we've been receiving, that the capital costs are within plus or minus 1% for multifamily and residential single-family homes, and also that the operating costs for multifamilies is pretty much on par, even cheaper, and residential homes, depending on the size and style and design, can be, you know, 10% cheaper to run, 10% more expensive depending. What I was surprised,
1 minute,
that 3/4 of multifamily homes are already meeting zero carbon step 4. So ultimately, a lot of this is status quo, but I think that this is the right step in the right direction. It's a small action, but it does bring a lot of hopefulness, I think, to a lot of people that government is actually taking this serious. This council had a strong mandate to take it serious and to put in policies in place to, like, honestly try to reach our targets. And this is what we're trying to do by enacting this. So thank you.
Thank you. You had 10 seconds. Oops. Now we have, hang on, I have to reset the mic. Councillor Manley, I saw you next, then Councillor Perino. Again, 5 minutes, starting the clock.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting this, and I know there's been a lot of emails coming into our inboxes, one way and another, and that's not necessarily what's swaying me, but I would like to address some of the misconceptions about this. This is not a ban on natural gas. The zero carbon step code does not affect people with older homes. New homes will not be allowed to use oil or gas as a primary heat source, but it does not prevent people from using natural gas for natural gas fireplaces or stoves, or having propane or wood stoves as secondary heat sources. They're all exempt from this code. And that's why the companies that install gas fireplaces weren't consulted, because they can go ahead and continue on with this. I know that Fortis has said that they're not going to put gas lines in. That is their prerogative as a monopoly that runs the gas supply. But in the city of Vancouver, they implemented a similar zero carbon step code in January of 2022, almost 2 years ago. And city of Vancouver staff have noted that fireplaces, gas fireplaces, continue to be going into new developments. So it's not going to ban fireplaces or stoves. I don't know why you'd want to burn, gas in a stove, because it releases benzene, which is a carcinogenic chemical, gives you cancer. It also releases nitrous oxide, which is gives people asthma or affects people with COPD. So, I would advise against using natural gas as a cooking source. There's been wide consultation with builders in this community and construction companies, and they wanted certainty. And they say it's more feasible to do this in one go rather than a bit at a time. It affects approximately 160 new homes built, and most of the apartments that are being built in the community already are compliant with the zero carbon step code. They're electrified. In terms of what the past presenter said, I don't know why you would need more than 200 amps to power your house unless you're in a 10,000 square foot home. Because I have a zero carbon house. I got a heat pump. I have a car that plugs in. Everything runs on electricity around here, and I have a 200 amp service, and I still have lots of room on it. Heat pumps are more efficient and cost effective than gas furnaces, and that's according to an industry government report that said that heat pumps are 6 to 8 times more efficient, and they're cost effective. Natural gas is going to become very expensive in British Columbia as soon as LNG Canada is online, when we start to export LNG, because we're going to be paying world price for natural gas. Right now, we're paying what the Australians were paying when they first got their LNG facilities in. We pay $4.20 a gigajoule. That went up to $20 a gigajoule in 2 years in Australia in 2017, and it spiked to $800 a gigajoule in 2022 when the Ukraine war happened. We have a publicly owned utility, BC Hydro. The BC Utilities Commission sets the rate. BC Hydro is well aware that they need to build out the infrastructure further to deal with increased demands on electricity, and we're going to see more power produced in communities like our own. The idea that power outages are going to be gas furnaces shut off in a power outage, because you still need electricity for the blower and the relays and the circuit boards and everything else. So we're in a climate emergency. We're watching not just BC, but not just Canada, but the world. Forests are burning. We're seeing extreme weather and extreme floods. The Arctic is warming and melting. We are in a climate emergency, and we have the responsibility to do something about it. I don't believe that this council we may not agree on everything. We all understand that climate change is real. We just may not agree that it needs to be done at the accelerated pace the same way, but this is one small step, and the zero carbon step code is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Perfect. 10 seconds left. Thank you. Reset. Councillor Perino, you too have the 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's a long evening, and we appreciate your passion. I want to start by saying that I deeply respect all of the members of this council Even though we are divided on some issues, I appreciate the caring and concern of the people I was elected to work with. But at the end of the day, tonight you're going to hear, obviously, some of our differences on this particular issue, but at the end of the day, we are a team supporting our community and this region. Having said that, I have some very grave concerns about this particular bylaw. I'll mention 3 reasons. This bylaw doesn't stop the heating of homes by natural gas. Anyone building a new home can not only has to purchase a heat pump, but they can also have a gas barbecue and a gas fireplace. In fact, they can have several gas fireplaces in their home to heat as much as they want. They don't ever even have to use the heat pump, they can just use the gas fireplace. So once again, we are in the situation where those who can afford it will have whatever they want. Those who can't afford it will be forced to have baseboard heating. In town, I've heard comments like heat or eat, and that for me is a major concern, that people are forced to just do what they can to abide by this bylaw. The cost for families will be considerably higher using electricity alone, and for me, this bylaw is unfair. The second is the amount of good that this bylaw does is not even a drop of water in the ocean. The natural gas that we don't use will simply be sold to some other community in BC. We're not changing a thing. Real leadership is advocating to our senior levels of government to improve how we receive natural gas, how it's processed, and the long-term goals of how we safely heat our homes in BC. And finally, asking our local businesses to turn their businesses around in 8 months is totally unfair. It is exactly why the provincial government agreed to the zero carbon plan by 2030. Pushing this forward to 2024 is overstepping our role, it's unreasonable, and it's unfair. We're the people that help to create business in this community. We are here to support our businesses and promote businesses. For me, this bylaw is totally unfair. It does not support business, and I won't be supporting it. Thank you, Chair.
That's it. Please, no clapping. Everybody else has been respectful when their side has done that, so I'm going to ask you to do the same, please. Okay, I gotta pause this one, reset. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this? Seeing, Councillor Thorpe?
Well, I wasn't going to, Madam Chair, but I will, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here this evening. And I don't wish to re-debate, and I know Council doesn't wish to re-debate. Everybody has their opinions, and I don't think anybody is going to change. But I just want to point out that some of our discussion, maybe most of it, has been off topic. Because whether or not you support the oil and gas industry or support Extinction Rebellion is really irrelevant this evening. The provincial government has mandated that cities follow a BC Energy Step Code and a carbon neutral step code with implementation guidelines. And this bylaw is not about whether or not we support the step code concept. If you don't, then talk to the provincial government. But they've imposed that. What we're dealing with is instead about the timing of the implementation. And I think Councillor Geselbrecht said, and I agree, Nanaimo's been pretty aggressive in reducing emissions. We've committed to following provincial step code guidelines where each step is taken and it's measured and it's monitored and it's evaluated. But now suddenly we're proposing to leap over the steps to the highest level, rushing to a very hurried implementation within 1 year. And that makes me weigh what are the tangible benefits of doing that against what are the tangible downsides. Benefits, well, will certainly please the climate activists, and I respect their opinions. And we keep hearing about climate emergency. But the fact is, in my opinion, and statistics we can use to justify anything, but in my opinion, nothing about our rushed implementation will have the slightest measurable impact on emissions. So then what is the tangible downsides? Well, what it will do, as I think Councillor Perino just mentioned, is put an unreasonable stress on local builders and developers to comply very quickly.
That's right.
Local businesses will be adversely affected. We've heard that. New homeowners will be adversely affected with a lack of choice. It will take away consumer choice when it comes to heating and cooking. And, to be honest, with all due respect, I disagreed with several of the comments of Councillor Manley, who I admire. but I think he mentioned that we have heard from local developers and builders that they want to see this done quickly. Well, no, I disagree. We've had dozens of letters from local contractors, developers, builders, tradesmen, all saying the same thing. They're willing to go along with the STEP code, but they need time to adjust their practices, to learn how to do it properly. And so rushing is not what they want. They're willing to follow the government guidelines as we are. They just think it's unfair and unwise to do it too quickly. Rushing, as it usually does leads to unintended consequences. So, I mean, council, we all have our own personal opinions and our beliefs. We're not here to push those. We're here to try and represent what's best for what we feel is the best interests of ordinary Nanaimo citizens. And I am absolutely confident that if this issue was put to a referendum, it would be soundly defeated. So I believe...
Please don't clap. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I believe, and I mean this, whatever the intent, this rushing is unfair, I think, to homeowners. It's unfriendly to business. It's unfriendly to consumers, and it's unfriendly to our economy. So for me, the downside greatly outweighs the benefit, and I urge council to think carefully about our duty to our citizens and vote it down tonight, at least until we have time for further discussion and consultation.
1 minute. Oh, okay.
I'm done.
Please. Okay. Recognizing Councillor Brown, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I won't need those 5 minutes. Yeah, you know, we've had this debate. You know, I think it's unfortunate. There's a lot of rhetoric that gets put out there, but at the end of the day, this has been, you know, heavily debated. You know, energy sources, climate change, and we can say its opinion, and we can say if we put it to referendum, ordinary citizens who we must represent, whatever that means, may vote it down, and that very well could be true. But at the end of the day, this has been a matter that's been well studied for decades, and some of the world's smartest people have concluded that there's significant changes occurring, and it's a result of energy choices. Different technologies exist now. The Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones. It ended because new technologies emerged, and those new technologies have emerged, and it's about getting on and adopting them. Yes, I understand that some folks in the business community development community have concerns, and we've also responded to some of those current concerns by delaying other items in the STEP code around the type of building materials and building assembly, because we're following the data and we're following the science, and what our own studies have shown us is that despite efforts made elsewhere for ordinary Nanaimo citizens to reduce their emissions, the expansion of natural gas, in particular, for the heating of homes, and I say expansion because there was lots of other ways in which homes were heated before that expansion occurred, but that expansion that has occurred has directly resulted in the overall emissions and the emissions per capita increasing for the ordinary citizens of Nanaimo. So when we follow the science and when we follow the smart people that we hire, which isn't just about opinions, it's about putting together factual information with the best information that we have to guide policy, this is where it points. So it's directly responding to a need. Yes, it may be a drop in the bucket, but when you start adding up enough drops, things do change, and that is how change has continually occurred. Hopefully we get there, but it is up to us and many others to do their part. And, you know, consumer choice is limited in a whole host of areas, and it always has been shaped through policy. So I think when we sensationalize these arguments and use rhetoric, it does a disservice to actual dialogue, and I fear that's where we're at with sort of entrenched opinions, and it makes it really hard to actually come to this table and come out into the community and have an informed discussion and put together reasoned arguments to help shape where that policy might go. So just want to say thanks to staff for trying to do that work in that environment, putting together a good policy document, coming to us with with that feedback in areas where we might change to better respond to those that are building in our community. I think you did an excellent job, despite the type of environment that work had to exist in, which I'm sorry for. But I will be voting in favor of this. At the end of the day, I believe it's good policy in response to the greatest challenge of our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other councillors wishing to speak to this? Seeing none, I would just like to thank those on the yes side for being very respectful, keeping your signs down as requested. That was very much appreciated. So just thank you all. So Councillor, we'll call the question on the second motion. All in favor? I see Councillor Manley, Hemmens, Eastmere, Brown, Geselbrecht opposed, Armstrong, Perino, Thorpe. Thank you. Third reading, please, Councillor Geselbrecht.
I got it here. That building amendment, move that building amendment bylaw 2023 number 7224.05 pass third reading.
Seconder, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? See Councillor Geselbrecht, Hemmens, Manley, Eastmere, and Brown. Those opposed? Armstrong, Perino, and Thorpe. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. So our last order of business before question period is Councillor Armstrong's motion re urban culture. So I will read my motion. That council directs staff to complete a review of the provisions of the animal control bylaw and the zoning bylaw that regulate the keeping of poultry on large residential properties and provide options to further support the city's goals of food security. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Manley. The motion speaks for itself. We know that there's been issues with different poultry stuff, whatever, so I think we need to update our bylaws and rules, and that's all I'll say on that. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Seeing no one else, call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none opposed, motion carries. Question period.
We do have one.
Okay. Francis Deverell, if you could take the mic, please, for your question. And it's for the policy on snow removal for sidewalks and bike lanes.
Oh, good. Something.
Ms. Deverell?
Yes, I want to say, just give a moment of context for my comment. I come from Saskatoon and Ottawa and Toronto, and so I'm used to other things, right? And I'm very well aware that Nanaimo doesn't see a lot of snow, and so they don't really have the same plans for it that these other places do. I know that. So I just want to say that I am part of a movement that's trying to have more active transportation. And what that means is bicycling and walking. And the area I live in, you cannot walk from my place to the Quality Foods, which is about a 15-minute walk, without walking right on the road. The sidewalks are completely covered because they are where they put the snow. And there's no attempt whatsoever to clear the sidewalks. And certainly on the main streets, the bike lanes are where they put the snow. So I know it costs more money to truck it, and that's what they have to do in the cities with real winter. And I don't know what to do about it. But I just want you to know that we are not friendly to active transportation when these events occur.
Thank you. Seeing no other people that wish to speak, motion to adjourn, please. Motion by Councillor Perino, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All in favor? And I hope all you people start to feel better at home. And Tyler, enjoy your time.
And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.